following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Back with Robert Cole. Little technical problems. What happened, Robert?
My dog decided to unplug us, so.
Oh, okay. Well, in a figurative sense. I mean, thank God it wasn't literal. Sorry about that, and glad we're back. What's the dog's name? Let's give the dog a little airtime.
The dog's name is Sydney.
Sydney.
Sydney's the dog.
After Sydney Finch?
Sydney Fields.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fields. Mr. Fields. I was watching a Seinfeld discussion panel, and he talked about naming characters after Mr. Fields, who, if those of you that don't know, Sydney Fields was a character on the old Abbott and Costello show, and he was terrific. He played a number of them. He played the landlord. He did a lot of writing for that show, and very esoteric. I like that.
Yes.
All right.
I was going to call him Mr. Botchagaloo, but I figured that was a little too much.
Right. Or Mike the Cop. We get. What was the tall, leggy brunette that Abbott and Costello, a woman that stayed in the boarding house? Do you remember her?
Yeah, I do remember her. Her name escapes me at the moment.
Okay. Let's get back to a little Met talk. You were in the midst of telling us, you were elaborating on the 18 and 10 finish, and what else do you find interesting and uplifting?
We have a second baseman and a shortstop now, Jeff McNeil, Ahmad Rosario. Rosario's with the Major League All-Stars in Japan, has been playing fairly well from what I've been able to read. McNeil had a terrific couple of months. We're all excited about seeing Peter Alonso, the young player that started at Binghamton, went up to AAA. Both places he hit very well.
Hit very well in the AFL season, the Arizona Instruction League, or Fall League, they call it. It did well in
hit a home run in their All-Star game a week or so ago. And,
right.
The new GM was down there to watch him, to talk to him a little bit. Basically told him that there's a job for him, but he has to win it. And we'll see what happens.
Well, you know what impressed me was the fact that he had always been, the scouting report on him had always been he's behind defensively. And he made a play in the All-Star game that was just terrific. First step quickness, it was beautiful. And they say his overall defense has really improved. And again, he becomes a candidate. He can seize the moment and really take them places if all things go well. Again, what I noted about the 18 and 10 finish is that all 5 pitchers were in a groove.
Yes.
They were healthy and doing the job.
Absolutely, including someone who I was very tough on, and we all were, and that's Vargas.
We killed him. He killed us, and we killed him. We don't hold back.
But he finished strong, okay? After his second stint on the DL, he came back, and hell, his last 6 or 7 starts, he was giving them 6-7 innings every start, and he looked like the player that they paid the money beginning of the season to get.
Right. That he did, and that bodes well for next year. He's tied up for a couple of years.
Yes.
So, that's going to be a big thing because, injuries, pitching injuries especially, not just the Mets, it's epidemic in baseball. So you could go into the season and expect that you're going to be using 4 or 5 guys from AAA who you may not even know who they are at this point, but they could be coming up and helping or hurting during the year. So having that kind of depth, 5 good starters. I don't know anybody else in baseball has 5 good starters. And if you can combine that with a solid double play combination, Lagares coming back to play center, injury-free, of course. You would all expect that in our dreams. But they also identified a real need to upgrade the catching. And that's the first time I've ever heard Met brass in the last 4 or 5 years not saying, well, let's give Diono another chance. Pilecki's coming up too. Nito behind him. Hey, it just isn't working. So it's my guess they're going to go out and get somebody, this catcher from Miami. The guy I always liked has become injury prone, it seems. Wilson Ramirez, who living in the Tampa area. You watched him with the Rays. Is there a possibility the Mets could get him, or is he someone you don't like? What do you think?
He's Wilson Ramos. He would be a very good fit for them. They would need a second younger catcher to go with him. He's a good defensive catcher. He's a good offensive player. I mean, if JT Realmuto is available and the Mets have any shot at getting him, that would be the way to go. Realmuto is a 20-25 home run guy, very good defensive catcher, still relatively young, and look what happened with the guys that have left Miami recently. Giancarlo Stanton was an MVP this year. Yelich was an MVP. These guys seem to flourish when they leave Miami. So I would love to get Realmuto first, but Ramos would be a viable backup plan.
Okay. Let's talk about the awards and congratulate our Jake. And basically Jake and Blake, because you're a Tampa guy, and they both won Cy Young Awards. Blake Snell with the Tampa Bay Rays. And I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. The National League was a runaway. deGrom got 29 of the 30 first-place votes. One schmuck didn't give him a vote. A guy by the name of John Maffel from the San Diego Union Tribune. And Marty Rose, who we were, discussing with earlier today, did some research on this guy Maffel, and it turns out that last year he'd only written 2 baseball-related articles the entire season, and yet he's voting, for Cy Young Award. So go figure that one out.
Well, go figure the voting community in baseball awards over the years. There have been some doozies in every category, Rookie of the Year categories, Most Valuable Players. They have not come up with a quantitative system for choosing MVP, for instance. And that's what makes it interesting. Shows like this, the debate, who should get it, who shouldn't get it. But here's something to think about. Jacob deGrom was the 5th leading candidate for MVP award in the National League.
Yes.
That says something, given the fact that he had 1 game over 500, and rightfully, whether or not pitcher gets the most wins isn't so much important anymore. And I'm glad to see, because deGrom's statistics were absolutely baffling. Gretzky-like, if you can see the analogy of comparing one guy to the rest of the league, and he's throwing that bell curve right out the window. So I'm happy he won. I'm happy he's getting the credit. Just goes to show you what he's going to do if he gets some support. And he will.
Well, and that brings up, the further question of, what do they do with him now? Because
long-term signability, in other words.
Right. Yep. Now his agent is now the GM, and his agent at the time, back during the summer, said that the Mets either have to give us an extension or trade us. Well, it'll be interesting to see now what that agent does as the GM.
And what they're allowing him to do. Did we ever find out whether or not his contract, I can't even think of his name, the new GM, if his contract excludes him from making him recluse any negotiations with his former clients?
I have not been able to find anything definitive, other than what you thought you saw.
And I'm remiss. I didn't follow up on that. I'll try to do that in the next few days.
But
it's a good question.
What's going to happen with that is all the other agents are going to be watching this. As to what happens. In all fairness, really, I mean, he should not be negotiating, at least for a period of time, with any of the people that he was representing. So, that's going to be...
Well, I would think in fairness to the Mets, from their standpoint, because he's got to be biased. It has to be. Whether he can say, if you ask him, he said, no, I'm not. I'm not biased at all. I don't buy it, no matter who he is. He's got to have some subconscious thinking going along the lines. I mean, if you go to a kid's...
His name is Brody Van Wegenen, by the way.
Okay. I hope he goes down as the greatest GM in Mets history, and they played this back where Tyko didn't even have the brains to jot down the guy's name. You're going to do a show, for crying out loud. What kind of preparation is that? Well, I'll tell you what, I will remember him for a long time if he puts a winner on the field. Just like I'll always remember Sandy Alderson, because say what you want about Sandy and the way things turned out, he got him to a World Series.
Got him to the playoffs 2 years in a row.
Right. I can't say enough about that, because given the ups and downs of any major league franchise, and really especially this, you can say over the last 50 years, it hasn't been a hayride, a day at the beach, none of those things. It's been almost a job, being a Met fan. And I'm watching Larry David the other day, and I'll take it out of context. His wife says, "My job is loving you, Larry." So, my job is loving the Mets, as they are. So, congratulations to deGrom. Let's look in the American League a little bit, because you're more familiar. Let's give Snell credit, and tell me about him a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is a guy who last year, not this past season, but 2 seasons ago, was supposed to come up and be a contributor and a reliable starter, was not, actually got sent back to the minors 3 different times. And then the third time he came back, something seemed to have clicked with him. And, like we're talking about Vargas having 4 or 5 good starts at the end of the season. Snell had that in 2017. Came into 2018, they didn't know what to expect from him. And all of a sudden, he quietly started to put start after start after start together. And last night, they were comparing his curveball to Sandy Koufax's, his demeanor on the mound to Steve Avery. Just some high accolades. And he has 4 pitches, fastball, curveball, changeup, and a slider. Gets them all over the plate. And
he's not a big guy in the traditional sense. Now they're looking for guys 6'4", 240, that type of thing. He looks to be about 6'1", maybe at the most. Yeah.
He's not a big guy. He's got a very easy, compact delivery. And he just throws. He throws hard, and yet he's sneaky fast as well. And by the way, he's 6'4" and 200.
Oh, okay. By comparison, that isn't that big. But anyway.
But he's tall, but he's quite slender. I mean, he's not 220, 230. He's just barely 200 pounds. So,
right.
In that respect, he's not as big as some of the big starters that are in the baseball right now.
Right. Talk of the bullpen. That I think that has to be their number one priority to be improved upon. Any talk that you hear?
Nothing concrete. It's funny, Ron Darling and John Smoltz were asked what they thought, the biggest need was. They both said the bullpen. So did Anthony DeComo, the MLB sports writer that covers the Mets. He said the bullpen. There's things available out there, players available, but I don't know if the Mets, going to open up the wallet to bring those kinds of guys in.
Well, you would think they'd be in a spending mood at this point, getting a new GM, having a double play combination, having the 5 starters, knowing that the envelope is very small. I mean,
right.
Again, in today's day and age, you got to pay these guys, and you can't pay everybody. So naturally, you're not going to keep it together forever, and you better strike while the striking is high. Have you seen indication that the Will Ponzi's, as we like to refer to them, are on a spending, at least thinking of spending?
Well, they have said as much. Brody Van Wagenen has said as much. Some of the New York newspapers are saying that it's being said that they have money to spend. Of course, they haven't spent it yet, so until they actually show that they're willing to spend it, we're not going to know.
Hey, can we end some confusion on something? I think what separates the owners that spend from those who don't, the owners that don't spend don't think of it as an investment. I don't think the owners that spend think of it as anything but. And they're looking to spend $1, make $2, where the owners that cheap out, and I hate to say Will Ponzi is right at the top of that list because there are others, so hard to judge who's on top. But I don't think of those. I think those people are the ones that think, boy, I don't want to spend any more money. And the ones that do spend the money think, boy, I want to invest money. How does that sound?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They've been burnt several times, as we know, with free agent acquisitions that have come in and been complete busts. Jason Bay comes to mind. Bobby
I know, but the people making those decisions aren't in charge now. And you're hiring people. You must have faith in the people you're hiring that they're going to make the right decision with your money. So go for it. And if you lose, what the hell? You'll never miss a meal for the rest of your life. You got something, a business that's increasing in value every year, as they all do. Nobody sells a franchise for less than they bought it for. And
sure.
And I think, again, we've talked about this, but I can't stress the seriousness for baseball. The big markets, New York, L.A., the Cubs, stuff like that, they have to be competitive. It doesn't really matter to baseball if Kansas City is competitive, but it does matter that New York teams are competitive. So there should be some setup with the agent, the owners who aren't paying the freight should be forced to get out. Just keep up with it. Spend the bucks. Don't cheap out.
And as we Met fans have been yelling and screaming about the Will Ponzis, and, they just have not shown that, that want to, do that. That's the unfortunate thing. They just have not done it recently, and until they actually start to do it, we can't believe yet. These guys are going to be available this. There's guys going to be available this year. Of all different statuses. Craig Kimbrell on the top end. Sean Kelly and Joe Kelly on the bottom end, and then all kinds of guys in between. I mean, I'm looking at names here. Yuri's Familia, Greg Holland, Jim Johnson, Ryan Madsen, Andrew Miller, Adam Ottavino, okay, even their own AJ Ramos.
Andrew Miller is a guy that I'd be looking to for a bounce back season.
With him, it's all about health, though. There's been so much on his arms those couple of years. The Indians really rode him hard a couple of years ago. The Yankees did. So last year he was out quite a bit with injuries. I'd be a little skeptical to spend too much money on him.
Yeah, well, in that case, he may come cheaply.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can get somebody like that on the cheap, yeah, I definitely would try to do that.
And you mentioned Familia. How about him? Do you think that he's a candidate to come back?
A candidate, yes. Now, I don't know what his feelings are about coming back. I think they left in fairly good terms, but you never really know whether he's harboring any resentment. I know he always said that he wanted to remain a Met, but we'll have to see about that. And I don't know if they're willing to give him the money that he's probably going to be looking for.
Now, I've asked this the last few shows, and I know it's a pipe dream, but Mejia had the better of the two, had the better arm of the two at one time. Any chance that, his suspension has been lifted? He was reputedly working out in Port St. Lucie. What do you think about him? Anything?
Well, I certainly wouldn't have any problem with them bringing him back. Again, I would think he would come on the cheap, and then it would all be up to him. I haven't. I'm looking right now trying to see if he's playing in one of the winter leagues. I haven't been able to find that yet. But yeah, most definitely, I would consider bringing him back.
Okay. all in all, you're feeling good about 2019? Just not a right or wrong question. Just your gut feeling.
Yes. Of course, we always have, that question about health with the Mets. But putting health aside, just looking at the team, I think if they can pick up one right-handed bat, which is very important because they're very heavy left-handed right now, with Cespedes out.
Right.
So we need one decent right-handed bat. If you could bring a catcher, right-handed hitting catcher in, okay, like a real Muto, that would solve a couple of problems right there to give you that extra right-handed bat in there. But, yeah, overall I feel good as long as they can get a couple of relief pitchers.
Right. That has to be the key.
Right.
Hey, listen, Robert. Pardon me?
I said the makings are there for a competitive team.
Good. I'm glad you feel that way because I feel that way, but, I've been accused of being Pollyanna in the past where, everything they do, I'm going, wow, I think that's great. And Vargas is a good example. Fell for that hook, line, and sinker. That's why it would be so nice if he comes back this year. And, just goes down as not a failure.
Oh, yeah. If he can come back this year and, realistically give them 12 wins, go deep, make his start every fifth day, oh, yeah, that would change the failure into, to the plus side.
Big plus side. That'd be great.
Yep.
Hey, Robert, good show. We'll do it again in a couple of weeks, and collectively we're rooting for Marty's granddaughter. Get well soon, my dear.
Oh, absolutely.
That would be great. She's contracting illnesses and pneumonia now from daycare. It's tough being a kid. You got to go through all that, and she's going to be fine. But we're going to give her some good vibes.
Absolutely.
All right, Robert. Talk soon. Be well, my friend, and thanks for a great Mets show. Mets Baseball, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko, the host. One of the hosts is Robert Cole. He was here tonight. Marty Rose will be back next time we get together. Be well, everybody. Thanks for listening. Adios.
Good night.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.